We used to say Taylor Swift was the relatable one. She was the girl with the guitar writing diary entries that accidentally became Billboard hits. She cried on stage, stumbled in heels, blushed on camera. She was proof that sincerity could survive fame. But now she is a billionaire, and sincerity doesn't scale that easily. Somewhere between cardigan chick and couture ball gown, she turned from the awkward girl next door into pop monarchy. And that shift, more than any lyric, feud, or PR moment, is what is defining this new era. The Taylor who once felt like a friend you'd text at midnight about heartbreak now feels like someone you'd need an appointment to meet. She is ascended financially, artistically, culturally, and the higher she climbs, the less oxygen there seems to be. Her image used to shimmer with vulnerability. Now it glows with glassy perfection, as if every tier has been tested for brand alignment. She is no longer the underdog singing about being overlooked. She is the empire everyone's watching, critiquing, and cashing in on. The funny thing is, this conversation isn't new. Taylor's been a billionaire for a while now. Her fans helped make her one, proudly cheering her on as the ultimate girl boss. They defended every business move, celebrated her power, and rooted for her to outsmart the industry that once underestimated her. The wealth itself wasn't the issue. It was part of the fantasy, but the life of a showgirl cracked that illusion in a way no one expected. This time, the problem isn't just that Taylor is rich or strategic. It is that the music didn't live up to the myth. Even the most loyal fans are saying it. The album just isn't good. The production is clean. The lyrics are sharp in moments, but the soul feels missing. It is the first time in over a decade that the consensus among her own fan base is disappointment. And that is a huge shift for someone who has spent her entire career being bulletproof to critique. The signs were already there. The Tortured Poets department didn't quite land either. Fans supported it, streamed it into oblivion, and still pushed for her Grammy win, because they wanted her to keep winning. But even then, people started whispering that something was off, that the writing felt forced, that she was chasing meaning instead of finding it. Before that, Midnight showed the same cracks. Sleek, dreamy pop, with moments of brilliance but a lack of real heartbeat. 3 eras in a row that feel less like evolution and more like repetition. By the time The Life of a Showgirl dropped, the fatigue had settled in. The same motifs, the same recycled metaphors, the same self-referential nostalgia. Taylor has always been a master of reinvention, but lately, it is starting to feel like she is reinventing the same thing over and over again. And for the first time, the fandom isn't buying it, literally and emotionally. This album didn't divide her listeners so much as unite them in mutual frustration. The Swifties who used to go to war for her are now talking openly about how uninspired it feels. The vinyl variants, the endless merch drops, the AI-level precision of the rollout. It all reads like she's trying to fill a creative void with commerce. It is not just that fans are tired of spending money. They're tired of pretending the product is still magic. The disappointment isn't one-dimensional. Fans are mad about the quality, about the oversaturation, about the sense that Taylor has become the very machine she once claimed to fight. They're mad that the woman who wrote about heartbreak and humanity is now selling luxury versions of vulnerability. And they're also mad that they can't recognize the artist they grew up with in this new hyper-curated brand. All those feelings coexist. They don't cancel each other out. That is why the backlash feels so personal. It is not about hating Taylor. It is about mourning the connection that made her feel human. And there's a practical piece to this, how the music is packaged. The multiple versions of The Life of a Showgirl didn't feel like celebration. They felt like strategy. Different covers, limited bonus tracks, retailer exclusives that turn listening into logistics. You don't just get the album anymore. You pick a path, or 2, or 8. The completists will chase all of them because that is what completists do, but even casual fans felt nudged into treating art like inventory. When a release looks like a scavenger hunt, people stop asking what the songs mean and start asking what they're missing. Her fixation on numbers doesn't help. Taylor has every right to be proud of her stats. Records broken, streams counted, certification stacked high like bricks. But when the narrative becomes scoreboard first, it changes how the music lands. There is a difference between a hit that spreads because people can't shut up about it and a hit that exists because the machine was tuned to make it inevitable. Fans sense the difference. They always have. They can tell when a chorus is built to stay in your head and when it's built to stay on a chart. That scoreboard energy bleeds into everything. If you're still watching, you know what to do. Subscribe. It's free, it's easy, and it quietly tells the algorithm you have taste. All right, let's keep going. Teasers timed to midnight, Easter eggs that double as pre-orders, countdowns to countdowns. It is meticulous, it is impressive, and it is exhausting. You don't join an era, you enter a campaign. Even wins start to feel transactional. The joy snags on the commerce. And then there is the mess that money can't polish. The beef. Not the epic archetypal feuds of early 2010s Taylor lore, but the subtler, pettier static that clings to the new era. The way fans read certain lyrics as sharp elbows. the perceived digs that ricocheted straight into the Charlie XCX discourse, turning what could have been a sly wink into a sour taste. Whether you think it is overblown or overdue, the optics are never great when a superstar who sits at the absolute top of the food chain appears to be swatting down at someone with less leverage. Intent may be debatable. Impact rarely is. Charlie's whole project lives in experimentation and scene building. She plays with form the way Taylor plays with scale. So when listeners heard Taylor step into Mean Girl Register from within a literal palace of success, it didn't read as camp. It read as condescension. Even fans who love a good diss are asking why that energy is pointed down instead of up. Punching across or up is sport. Punching down from a billionaire's balcony is a different story. It turns wit into weight. The beef chatter also exposed the truth about this era. Taylor doesn't just dominate a conversation, she consumes it. Her orbit pulls other artists' releases into the conversation, whether they want to be there or not. In a healthier moment, that gravitational pull is flattering. In a fatigued one, it's suffocating. The culture needs more than one storyline at a time, and lately it feels like Taylor's storyline is the only one the algorithm wants to hear. All of that would be survivable, artists weather worse, but only if the songs themselves felt undeniable. Too often on The Life of a Showgirl, the hooks feel airless and the metaphors arrive pre-sanitized. The diary voice that used to cut straight to bone has been replaced by lacquered slogans that sound like they were born ready for a lyric video. A bridge can be clever without being cutting. A verse can be polished and still feel empty. You can sense the drafts underneath, the compromises baked in. It is the rare Taylor record where you can admire the craft and still feel nothing a minute later. And then came the moment that truly stung. When fans thought some of the songs were AI generated, clips started surfacing on TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts. Melodies with generic phrasing, uncanny production, vocals so processed they barely sounded human. At first, everyone assumed it was a fan-made filter, an AI experiment stitched together for laughs. But when people realized it was real, actual tracks from the album, it became the biggest indictment yet. The artist once praised for her lyrical specificity was now being mistaken for an algorithm. That is not criticism. That is cultural whiplash. The lyrics themselves didn't help her case. Lines that once felt like emotional tattoos now sound like they were scribbled on autopilot. It is not that she suddenly forgot how to write. It is that she seems too insulated to notice when the spark is gone. When no one around you can tell you this line is bad, you start believing every line is genius. Fame makes echoes sound like applause. Which brings us, naturally, to the Marie Antoinette metaphor. Not because Taylor is prancing around in powdered wigs, though, knowing her flair for aesthetics. Give it time. But because she embodies the contradiction of that kind of royalty, beloved yet resented, extravagant yet oddly out of touch. Marie Antoinette wasn't hated for being rich. She was hated for not realizing how her luxury looked from the outside. That is the mood of The Life of a Showgirl. It is opulent pop released into a moment of cultural burnout. The songs drip in sequins while the world feels frayed. It is not the optics of evil. It is the optics of indifference. Taylor's palace isn't Versailles. It is the charts, the headlines, the algorithms bending to her will. But the metaphor holds because the audience is changing. People aren't content to be dazzled anymore. They want to be moved. The showgirl can keep dancing, but the crowd isn't clapping the same way. They're watching, fascinated, frustrated, wondering if the next song will finally sound human again. And that is the irony, isn't it? The woman who once wrote the soundtrack to our humanity is now being compared to a machine. She built her legacy on empathy, on noticing small details, and turning them into something universal. Now, even her sincerity sounds branded. It's not betrayal, it's erosion. Slow, quiet, inevitable. But there is still something hauntingly hopeful about this fall from grace. Taylor has reinvented herself before, and she can do it again. Maybe this era was never meant to be adored. Maybe it is the necessary unraveling before the reinvention. Every empire has a reckoning, and every artist has to decide if they're still hungry enough to make something that bleeds instead of sparkles. So no, Taylor Swift isn't Marie Antoinette. She is something rarer, a living cautionary tale about what happens when art and ambition collapse into one. The curtain hasn't fallen yet, but the audience is starting to whisper. And that silence between applause, that is where the truth lives.